Hello.
Peace.
Good afternoon. Good morning for some. I am Zakai Free.
And I'm Ananda Free.
We are the Frees.
The Frees.
And we're just happy to be here for this African spiritual conversation.
Yes.
And before we jump into it, we were talking about the slight delay in getting started, and we were mentioning that it's the time period we're in right now is Mercury retrograde.
It went retrograde on Sunday.
So it's an astrological thing where in the sky, the planet Mercury, it's not literally going backwards.
It appears to be.
It appears to be going backwards when compared to the motion of the other celestial entities. And so when that happens, about twice a year.
No, it happens.
This year is 3 times, right? Every year is 3 times.
It happens almost every it's every 4 months.
Okay, so about 3 times a year this happens. And during that time period, you'll notice, and you probably will now if you hadn't before, because we're sharing this with you, technology,
communication
stuff happens where things don't go right.
Communication.
You send an email that you didn't proofread, you sent to the wrong person. Also, car accidents and things like that. So please slow down, double check stuff. It's a good time to review. It's not necessarily a good time to start new stuff, but it's a good time to review things that you've already been doing. So just be watchful and be mindful during this time period.
I remember one of my first spiritual teachers, Ibai, Dr. Prem Ben, when I was having issues in the relationship. I felt like we would have these issues, and he would remind me. He was like, Mercury's retrograde. I was like, what the hell is that? Now it's like this cultural mainstream phenomena. It's in vogue.
It's like a buzzword.
It's a buzzword, right? But back then, people were like, but he told me about it. And I noticed that during that time, for me, it wasn't always technological stuff. It had to do with relationships, communication, my old self-talk, healing that got to come up during that time, old patterns, things like this, things that one would think, or I thought that I had released, would be like, ha.
Yeah, and sometimes like old friends and lovers and stuff will pop up too. They all of a sudden they'll be giving you a phone call or reaching out and stuff like that. People from your past. So yeah, just be aware of what that is. Be conscious of what's happening.
So we have my husband has a girlfriend. Her name is Nyla. And she is a nuisance.
It's actually my wife's dog. She wanted a dog for her birthday.
That's not what happened.
Well,
you keep telling the story that way.
You wanted a dog.
I wanted a dog.
But then
my ancestors blessed me with a dog.
Go get this dog.
Not even 24 hours after my 2 birthdays ago.
Right.
So they came to me and told me to go to this particular shelter at this particular time, and my dog would be there.
Mm-hmm.
They said she would come in the afternoon, and he actually saw her because I came out of the shelter like, I guess I got the wrong message, and he was like, no, there was a puppy, and she was so cute. Remember you said that?
No, it's been a long time, and this is all about spiritual stuff, right? Because again, the ancestors actually told her the dog was there, and we went to the place.
No, they said she would be there in the afternoon. We got there
early in the day.
We got there before noon.
Right, and we got there, we looked around, we went through looking at all the dogs and stuff, and then we had got back in the car.
It was hot.
Yeah, and I think you had gone back in for one last time or something. I had enough of being in there, and I think the children were kind of tired of being in there too.
Yeah.
So, because the dogs were barking and it's hot and it's stinky and stuff.
Right.
So we got in the car, and then this lady pulled up with a dog, a puppy, and she was turning it in, and so she was surrendering it. I guess I don't know what the word is.
Yeah, surrendering
it to the pet place, the
SPCA,
animal control. And so my wife came back out.
Society. Mm-hmm.
My wife came back out. I said, she was like, oh, I guess it's not gonna happen. We didn't see the dog or whatever. And I said, oh well, this lady just pulled up with a nice, cute puppy. Maybe that you want to go check it out. And so she went back in, And
Well, I talked to the lady because
Right.
the lady came back out. She was in her car. You asked her why she surrendered the dog.
Yeah.
She said
She was
that she was
moving.
moving to Atlanta
Yeah.
and she couldn't take her with her.
Right.
And she said, "Do you want to see her?"
Yes.
And I went in with her and I saw her, and she hadn't been processed or anything. She was still in her crate and all this other stuff. And when I saw her, I was like, "Oh my God!" And they didn't make me fill out paperwork, which they normally do, all these other things. They just gave it back, made her sign a waiver. She signed it, and she gave the dog to me.
Right.
And her name is Nyla, and she's a handful. And every day, my husband reminds me that she's a handful.
Yeah, because originally it is her dog, but the dog has taken a liking to me for some reason.
Because she's not fixed yet, and he's a male. And I've had a female dog before. Remember Zoe?
Yeah.
And she was my dog.
Mhm.
And then what happened?
Yeah.
She was always on you.
Okay.
Huh?
I guess Zoe wasn't so obvious because she was so small.
So she was smaller.
So it was a little bit easier to manage. This
Right.
dog is kind of big and strong. Sometimes I think she's trying to like off me because she's like trying to push me down the steps and all kind of stuff. So I don't know how much of it is affection or trying to get rid of the other person. I don't know.
She's not trying to off you. We get to get her training. We were going to get her training, and then COVID happened, and so yeah. And I'm the only one she listens to me. Anyway.
Yeah. So that's all good fun. So we wanted to do a couple things today.
Yes.
There's a lot going on
Yes.
here in our world.
Yes, we're in the middle of a tropical storm.
Well, yeah, to the west of us.
No, they are getting a hurricane.
Yes.
We have a tropical storm warning, sir.
Yeah, but right now the weather's fine. So we'll see how it progresses.
It's breezy than a mug.
Yeah, but there's no rain or anything. It's actually pretty beautiful. It's nice out there.
Well, I'm glad you enjoy the rawness of it all.
Yeah, it's nice. So as you may or may not know, my wife is an artist, a very talented, gifted artist. The chair that she's sitting on, she designed this, the artwork hanging behind us. And so a week ago, today actually, 7 days ago,
yes.
we launched a new company.
Yes.
It's called Weird Wonders.
Yes.
And that's spelled WYRDWONDERS. I'll put it in the chat too. .fun is the website. And it's a toy company.
Yes.
So, Ananda, why don't you tell them some more about the company and why you got this idea and all the good stuff?
So, I wrote a book. It's called Yeye Sweetwaters and the Mean Mermaids. And I wrote that a little less than a year ago. And it's my first children's book. And my second book, my first children's book. And it came to me one day when I was in the kitchen. I was washing dishes. And the word Yeye Sweetwaters came to me just like that. No cap. And so, what do you say? So I was like, what is this? Like, what is this? What is the spirit? And 7 days within, like maybe 7 days or 10 days, within that time, I got the download for the book. I wrote the book, reached out to the illustrator, Ross Cheryl Tuesday, shout out. And we started this wild adventure. And during that time, not really beknownst to me at the time. My husband was telling me when I told him about the story behind the book. He was like, "There's this big thing about Black mermaids," because I think Disney was in the process of reissuing The Little Mermaid and making The Little Mermaid Black.
Mm-hmm. And huge controversy about it. You may not remember. So many controversies have happened since then.
Right.
There's a whole big stink about should we actually have a Black mermaid?
But for us, The Little Mermaid was that first glimpse into that lore. But for those who knew and know, and shout out to the internet and really making the world much smaller than what we thought it was 25, 30 years ago. Because on the continent, mermaids are a part of lore, mysticism, and also a part of spiritual pantheons.
Cosmology, right?
African cosmology. So being a priest and incorporating that aspect, practicing African traditional religion and actually being initiated to two deities that are mermaids, it just felt apropos. Also,
which deities are the mermaids?
Yeye Oshun, Ori Yeyo, and Mami Wata, Omina Wata. So like being very wanting to merge it, wanting to not just have a conversation around the mermaid princess, which is dope. But the other aspect is that mermaids aren't just princesses; they're deities.
Okay.
At least in the tradition that I practice, and they're powerful, 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 powerful deities, Voodoo, Orisha, and also it's part of our story.
Okay.
Whether or not you practice Islam, whether or not you practice Christianity, Buddhism, Baha'i, non-dualism, whatever. Like, I think it's important for our people to connect to that, to connect to, because every day when we say happy Monday, happy Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, those are not our days of the week. They came from the Greco-Roman period. The calendar that we follow, Western, is not. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
And so
these are all deities that came from antiquity, even before the Romans. The Romans took that stuff from even before them.
Yes, and so when they talk about, and each day of the week in the Greco-Roman calendar is after a Greek god.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Even today, is Aphrodite Day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We have 3 children, so sometimes you'll hear the clamorings of children. So what was I going to say? So anyway, from writing the story, writing the book and coming out with the book, it was impressed upon me to also come out with stuffed mermaids, like plush mermaids, right? But to do it a little different. So the mermaids in the story are all diverse. So there's, I believe it's 6 of them, but they all represent different melanated hues. They all have different body types. Another one even has a crooked fin, just giving acknowledgement to those of us who were born differently able, And so it's so important to show the spectrum of diversity, even within our own culture, because a lot of times what we see displayed, what we see reflected to us in I was about to say in the mirror, in the news, in the media, on shows, is this really deep, patriarchal, Eurocentric view of the standard of beauty. And so I felt like it's important that our children see themselves in lore, and there's other books coming through. So we got the Little Merboys, and you know what I mean? The different mythical creatures coming as well. But I think it's important for the story to be told from our lens as well. And it takes place in ancient Yoruba land. We're really excited. So anyway, fast forward last week. So we launched the company Weird Wonder. And Weird Wonder is where imagination and innocence thrives, because more often than not, our children are subjected to adultification, are adultified, are hypersexualized, hypersensualized, all the things where they don't get to just explore their childhood.
The innocence and the joy and the creativity of being a child, just being natural. Our children, for the most part, don't get that opportunity. They're expected to be like little adults and take care of the younger ones, or fill in the gap, because the parent, and oftentimes, as we know, it's a single parent. The parent is working or doing other things, and so the child is kind of thrust into these adult situations and roles, and it's not healthy. So
also for children and also for children who have, not to be heavy, but just to state a fact, who have survived sexual abuse,
trauma,
who have survived trauma, who are it's really to inspire our children to keep their innocence.
Sure.
By any cost. Mm-hmm. Regardless of, to make promises to them.
When you say any cost, it makes me think about, because a lot of times doing that is inconvenient to the parents. Because adults we have our agenda, things we're trying to get done. And if kids are in a state of wonder and play and fun and stuff, and we want them to stop and get on the page of what we're doing, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, there's a video going around now with was a white body person, and he's going into his child's bedroom, and she's playing video games, and she's going to take the trash out. And so he says, take the trash out. And she's like, well, I'm playing this game with my friends as a team kind of thing. And so he stops and slows down and says, oh, okay, I'm going to respect this as much as I would if you were playing a sport, like out in the field with people. I wouldn't stop the game for this. I'm gonna let you finish, and then you can take out the trash.
And what color were these people?
They were white body. So there was a whole controversy about this thing. This is what happened. So black people were saying, well, black people don't do this. And I'm like, maybe we probably should think about doing something like that. Like, again, what you said, even if it inconveniences, prioritizing that fun and innocence and play and joy.
Well, the bottom line is the trash is going to be there. Right. And when she's finished, the trash is going to be there. And we gotta put the website up again.
It's weirdwonders.fun. I'll type it in again here. Go ahead, baby.
A lot of times, and I've done it myself as a mother because of how I was raised. My mom would say, do something. I better anticipate my mom's needs, anticipate my parents' needs. Do things without being told, fall into line, not have a certain kind of, not be a child, but I'm not saying be disrespectful either, but I'm also saying that it's important. And I've had to find myself, really pay attention to that, because my husband's really good about being in the moment and being with the children, and I could be like, did you do this? Did you do that? Did you do this? Did you do that? What about this? What about that? And he's like, the trash will be there. Your children are not always going to be this age in this moment, wanting to even be home with you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
It's practical. Like we talk about spirituality, right? The practical part of being spiritual is perspective.
Right.
So, like you just said, we only have so many years when they're going to actually want to play with us and be engaged, because usually adolescents and the teen, they're going to have their own friends and they want to experience their own life. And we only have, so much time in these physical bodies.
Right.
Even if we live to be 100 years old, it's still not enough time, right? So, when I'm dealing with them, I'm keeping that in mind. Like, time is so fleeting. Let's not overstress some of these minor things when we can be enjoying what we have with them.
So we launched a company, and our rollout, she's been in the bag. Our rollout doll is Yeye Sweetwater's. Let's see. And
wonderfully embroidered. This is not screen print. This is all stitched.
Yeah.
So it's
very really good job.
Very well done. Very well made.
Really good job.
It's about 18 inches, so it's nice size.
Yeah, I mean, you can.
Yeah, very huggable.
Hugger. And then there's Omi Boye. And I love Yeye Sweetwater. Omi Boye as a succulent and juicy human being myself, and not seeing that representation out there for, those of us who have round bellies, and those of us who are darker hued, and so
representation matters.
Representation so matters. Yes. So matters. And I think it's look at you.
They're in the book, and now they're in the world.
Characters from the book.
Isn't that awesome? I mean, it's just great. I'm so proud of my wife. I just want to say that, people have ideas all the time, but to take your ideas from in your head and on the paper and bring it out into the world, it's no light feat. And she's done all this while raising 3 young children. All of our children are under the age of 10, and she homeschools. And doing all the spiritual work of a priest. She's very dedicated to the Orisha and her work with them and her own development. So no one can say it can't be done. It's not easy. I've seen her spend a lot of hours up at night and sacrificing her own comforts at times. But she's manifested some wonderful pieces that I think will be a great benefit to the world. So please spread the word.
It's a great,
it's available.
It's a great benefit to our world and to our children. I love our children so much, not just the children that came from our family and our lineage, but our children deserve so much. They deserve to all of them, our little girls and our little boys and our children who are non-binary, they deserve what their spirits have come here to have.
Mm-hmm.
And without having to, I was talking to someone the other week and I said, you don't have to tell a rose what it's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to get the seed of a rose and say you're going to be a rose. The rose is already a rose, and if it's put in gazaleas, whatever flower you want to use, whatever plant you want to use, it comes here with the DNA of what it's come here to be. Period. So our children come here with their destinies. All we get to do is create an environment that is sustainable, that is nourishing, that is nurturing, that is loving. And certain children have certain requirements. Some children don't need so much watering, don't need so much attention. Some kids, if a strong breeze blows, the daggone the leaves is wilting and all shriveled up and carrying on. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So we get to give back to our children because they give so much to us. I know for us, in our experience, children are blessings. They're not inconveniences. They're not. They are actually the plugs to ourselves if we're paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
If we're paying attention, they'll show us who we are.
Mm-hmm.
Before the happened.
Right. It's true. And it's a great opportunity for like that self-work too, like when you're dealing with your children and those frustrations and things come up. It does. I mean, we're human, stuff happens. But it really helps, for me personally, in my own growth, to make sure that I'm tuned in and checked in and aligned with spirit, so that I'm not being triggered by them, or I'm responding to them in a way that's appropriate, and taking the time to do that.
Well, the other aspect, yes. And the other aspect is that these dolls are also for anybody.
Adults. Yeah. I mean, these are collectibles. People have those, what do you call it? Those, when you have the emotional support animals and things like that.
Right.
Like these are, seriously, this does feel like emotional support when you're hugging this mermaid, you know what I'm saying? Or, imagine you at your home office, because everybody's mostly at home now, and you have this on your desk just to remind yourself of the joys of life, or to remind yourself of our culture, our history, that these entities are part of who we are as African people.
Yeah.
Like how expansive and amazing it is that it wasn't just some fantastic creation of somebody in Hollywood.
Right.
This is something that actually comes out of our story about our origins and who we are and how we even got to this planet. If you go to what the Dogon said about the Nomo being amphibious beings. So, it's a great addition. Yeah.
And can you see how they're here ready to hug you? But if you go back to the Little Mermaid, the movie, and they talk about the father's Poseidon.
Yes. Yeah.
I really just want our people to take a pause for that. The father is Poseidon, who is the god of the sea. It's not Jesus. It's not, no shade, but it's Poseidon. So even there, and a lot of times, in a lot of movies, and a lot of
we were watching Aquaman,
Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief,
yes,
Harry Potter,
yes,
all of these stories where folks have made so much money
and impacted
and
impact
culture,
right,
have made huge contributions to cultural shifts, no matter what the color, the ethnicity, or anything like this. Because I want our people to really sit with the moment, some of our people, the moment we come out with something sometimes that goes back to our culture, it's like, that's not Christian.
Right.
That's of the devil. That's jinn. That's this, that, and the other.
While you stand in line to get tickets to the Disney with the rat ears on your head.
Don't do this.
No, it's real though. You're right. It's so interesting. You're right. Like so many things we allow, or some people allow to slip kind of slip under the radar. Just, all the different cartoons, all these things, they don't just appear out of space, guys. I mean, they come from somewhere, and oftentimes they're traced back to ancient mythology, folklore, stories. And many of these stories, even Poseidon, all those folks are actually mutations from our African traditions, because that's the origin of all humanity. So, it'll start there, and then over time, it begins to get lighter and wider, and then doesn't reflect us at all. And we don't necessarily fight against those things like you're saying.
No,
we fight against our own stuff.
We'll say this is not okay.
Right.
But meanwhile, I know people who have seen all of the Harry Potter movies.
Sure.
Yes, there are that subset of fanatical evangelical Christians. They're not watching none of that. The Amish, they're not doing none of that. But pop culture and mainstream culture shows that we kind of drive the culture.
Yeah.
And so instead of just driving our culture, look at Ibaye. What's the Baba? He just passed.
Oh, from Black Panther? Oh, yeah. Yeah. His name is escaping me right now. Chadwick Boseman.
Yes, Chadwick Boseman. Ibaye to him, making his journey to the land of the ancestors.
Ashe may be well received.
Ashe. The thing that Stan Lee did was almost unprecedented, because he wrote Black Panther black when nobody was writing about no black nothing.
Right.
Right. And so then to bring this out, and then to have cast and directors and choreographers behind the scene, bringing this to us about a place that does not exist. Does not exist.
Yeah, it exists in our imagination.
It exists in our imagination.
Yeah.
And what did exist, it was ancient beauty and civilizations. It felt like it was a hodgepodge of different things that we don't even know about, that we haven't even experienced.
Yes.
But this white body man tapped into that. And that is the power of our people, of melanin, because Stan Lee, I think, even knows that he was black. Even though he was...
Oh, yeah, he had to study those traditions to come up with that story.
He had to.
Yeah, because a lot of the things that happen in the original, in comic books and stuff.
I think even, what's the guy's name now? George Lucas.
Sure. With the Star Wars.
And Steven Spielberg. These people study our cultures.
Of course, yeah. Yeah.
They study our cultures, because for them, it's not, because they haven't been told... They haven't been First of all, these people, I think they're Jewish. Steven Spielberg.
Yeah.
But they haven't been inundated with the white Christ.
Sure.
And they haven't been told that they can't.
Right. That's the biggest point. I think it goes back to what we were saying about supporting imagination and freedom and innocence. Like, if no one's telling you can't,
then you're free to do anything.
Then you can, and you will.
And for me, in my own story, and I don't think I've ever said this out loud, was that the reason why being an artist and discovering art pretty late in my life, in my mid-20s, and not going to school for it, just doing it as a release and a way to heal. I was told by my parents, because I was labeled learning disabled in school. I was labeled all these different things. My parents, even though now they wouldn't say so, but they said as a child I was lazy. It wasn't because I was lazy. They didn't know how to motivate me, because they were busy with work and all these other things. My point in saying all this is, nobody ever told me I couldn't be an artist. Nobody ever told me that I couldn't get some paint and start painting. Nobody ever said that to me. They told me I wasn't smart. So they told me I couldn't be a doctor. They told me all these different things. My parents didn't say that, but society as a whole, my teachers, people reflected that back to me, because I wasn't so smart in terms of grade wise, which shifted over time. Because once I started studying things in high school, when you could start picking your classes,
sure,
I excelled in the things that I took interest in. And so math wasn't one of them, but that's okay. But I think I know how to count money. But I think that it's important for people to understand that the sky is not the limit, that you can go beyond this realm while incarnate. You can tap into your ancestors. And if you think that, because trust me, if 2 years ago, if you'd asked me if I'd have wrote a children's book, I actually was going to stop writing. My mom actually told me a little over a year ago, one day I was walking the dog, a year and some, maybe 4 months ago, before I wrote this book, I was talking to her on the phone. We were walking the dog. I was walking the dog. And she was like, I look forward to your next book.
Mm.
And I was like, Mom, I'm not writing any more books. And she said this almost a month before
the book came to you.
Before the book came to me. And she was like, no, you have more books in you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important that we speak into one another's lives, that we uplift one another. And as adults, your imagination isn't dead.
That's
because
right.
You're not a child.
That's right.
Your imagination is still there waiting for you. And you get ideas and pings and heart's desires. That's your destiny. That's that thing, that whatever it is, whatever the flash is for you, it's calling to you to be born.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, your child is in there, so you don't want to neglect it. That's a good point too. Like, and again, that's a good. Sometimes things like this, as for an adult, again, just like remind you that you still have a child inside of yourself and that needs to play and needs to have fun and enjoy, things that
And I think that's important, because a lot of times what adults are thinking about, most adults are, to me, in my limited perspective, what I see on Instagram, Facebook, they're thinking about right now politics,
yes,
the state of the world,
yes,
and thinking about if they have a family, raising their children, their job first,
mm-hmm.
and then possibly having some sex, possibly, and then if you go
social activities,
yeah,
leading to sex,
exactly. Thank you for that, because
right.
People who are, you know what I'm saying, so it's like those are the things: food, clothing, shelter, affection, sex. But what happens is that part of us that's the juiciest is our creativity and our imagination and our passion, which goes beyond those places.
Yes.
And if we feed that part of ourselves, then we can be possibly, I'm not going to say possibly, we financially free. Right? Because you're doing something that you love. And when you do something that you love, it reverberates and it attracts, right? Then you have more time to spend cultivating the things that you love and spending time with loved ones and things like this. Then you're not worried about like food or things like this, because you're able to either you have time to grow your own food or shop at places that are sustainable. And then you have time to cultivate relationships that lead to great sex, because you're not stressed out. So instead of sex being like a stress reliever, it's actually this amazing, engaging, deep, loving, fun, sensual exchange with another human being or yourself.
So again, it all starts with owning your passion and being in contact with your creativity, your imagination. We all have it. So, don't neglect it.
So shifting gears just a little bit and going into the next topic, relationships. And
so, so many things come up because of the news cycle. And so in the news today, trending on social media is this conversation that, Young Jeezy's fiance, they're soon to be married, she's a TV host. Okay. And she had a mention that she plans to be submissive to her husband in their relationship. So let's watch the video. It's about 2 minutes, and then we'll talk a little bit about what we think about what she has to say.
USA Today recently reported that President Trump's nominee for the U.S. Supreme Court, Amy Coney Barrett, has close ties to a Christian religious group called People of Praise, who reportedly teach that it's a wife's job to submit to the will of her husband, as the Bible teaches. So far, Barrett has declined to publicly discuss her affiliation with People of Praise. I did not even know this existed. But this week, Matthew Cochran of the Federalist defended this viewpoint, arguing that equality in marriage only breeds resentment, and that just because a woman is submissive to her man doesn't mean it will hold her back in life, highlighting Amy's potential new job as evidence of that. I think it's so weird when people try to use the Bible for these sorts of things. I think that gets really weird. Obviously, the Bible was written in a different time, a completely different. Literally, there's parts in the Bible that literally say that you should stone somebody if they eat shrimp in Leviticus. Like, we have to recognize
or not color your hair.
Yeah, I mean, there's literally really extreme things that are said. I think God also gives us wisdom. And I think that there are also other parts of the Bible that recognize how important and how essential a woman is to the world and to a marriage. And it speaks on equality. Like, for me, I just feel like the concept of being me submissive to my husband, but what is he not submissive to me as well? I think for me, I think that's what give and take in a relationship is about. It's about compromise. And stop smiling when you see that picture, Jeannie.
No, it's so cute.
Like, why? But I feel love it. Like, this just takes us backwards, you guys. As women, we fought so hard to be equal and viewed equal in our relationships, in our workplaces. And the concept of being submissive has a negative connotation to it. I think when they're talking about her being a boss and obviously having this incredible position that she may be taking, guys, there are people who are bosses in their workplace and then they want to come home and let their husband lead. That, again, is their choice. That is not them being submissive.
Right.
That is them
That's
choosing
it's about
that that's what they want. It's a difference.
Right.
That's right. So the actual definition of submit is to accept or yield to a superior force or to the authority or will of another person. So I'm going to say right here that I, Jeannie Mai, going into my marriage, I want to submit to my man.
So there's that. Ananda, what do you get?
This gets all my everything going. Why? Because that's their business. Like, if they want to go home and submit, so if she want to say out loud that she's submitting to her man, like, for me, submissive, the only way a submissive even works, the submissive is the one that's in charge as far as I'm concerned, but that comes from more of a BDSM.
Well, no, explain that, because
conversation.
Again, these are all words. So
right.
Some of the women on that clip, they were triggered by the word submissive, and and they were triggered also by the fact that it's a biblical kind of connotation that the Supreme Court nominee was bringing to it. And then when Miss Mai came in and said the dictionary definition, it kind of shifted a little bit. So these are words. So when you say the submissive is actually in control, explain that. Because
you have no power. A person has no power without me giving it to them.
Okay. So it's an active permission.
It's an exchange.
Exchange.
So in BDSM, in the little that I know about it, the dominant is the dominant because the submissive is submitting. But the submissive has all the power. The submissive has the words, the safe words. The submissive is letting you know to go, in the play, in the role play, in the sex play, whether to go deeper, harder, faster, stronger. Woo! My word.
Mm-hmm.
Why you look like that?
No, I'm just listening to you because you're applying it in that way, but it works.
But let me
it works every. It works.
Let me
go ahead.
Go further in
Please,
that.
Go ahead.
There are people in couples who practice BDSM where that dominant sub role is 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
It's every day, and I think sometimes it gives a person a feeling like the person is being persecuted or abused.
Mm-hmm.
Literally walking on, somebody walking on their back and carrying on.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what I get. Now, in the day of, what I find, if I'm gonna be really honest,
hopefully,
I do my best to be. I'm somebody that stays at home with our children and does my best to keep a house, all these other things. But my husband goes out here, it empowers me to start businesses. So certain other things can be the way we want it to be in our lives, right? I think that most people a lot of women out here, and I'm pro whatever you want to do. If you want to work outside the house, if you want to work in the house online, if you want to start your own business, if you want to be an entrepreneur, if you want to be a sex worker. I mean, I'm that sister that's like, as long as you're not hurting anybody and as long as no one's hurting you, hey, that's what's up.
You got free will.
You have free will. And if that's what your heart desires.
Sure.
If we change the context from, if it was two women instead of a man and a woman, what would be the expectation? I think in a lot of ways, some of the things that have made our society a little slanted is because people don't want to be, everybody want to be equal.
Nobody wants to submit to anything.
No one wants to submit to anything. You have people looking for spiritual teachers, but they want to be their contemporary. What?
Or they want to Google something.
Or they want to Google
tell
something
the teacher what the
and tell the teacher what you understand what I'm saying?
Right.
You got, in order to, just like when we're talking about our children, and I know I might be going off topic, my children teach me, but I'm their guide.
Right.
Having a guide does not get rid of your discernment. A woman submitting to her husband does not, or to her partner, or a man submitting to his partner, or to his wife, for that matter.
Yeah.
It does not take away the person's autonomy. It does not take away the person's discernment. It does not take away your free will. If anything, that person is saying, you know what, baby, I trust you. You got it.
Exactly. Yeah, and they talk about the Bible and stuff, and I think that's problematic because, I mean, one, if you do any research, you'll know that the book, was pulled together by King James and others at various Council of Worms, different ones where they just culled together different pieces to create a text to serve their political interests. So it's problematic when you try to take that book and say, well, these are the rules we should do, because people don't understand the history of that, and they don't understand what the real focus of bringing that together. But my point I want to make around it is, in the scripture, before the wife submits to her husband, the man is supposed to be in submission to God. So if you're in submission to the Creator, and in our case, in African traditional religion, submitted to the Orisha and your ancestors, and they are really a counsel for you, then you're not going to abuse your partner, and you're not going to use whatever position that you may have to belittle them in any kind of way. It is mutual support.
Absolutely.
And I think that this idea that we have to be fighting each other for power within our household is why these households break up, because they don't have any foundation or structure for how to order things. And it could be flat. It doesn't have to be necessarily hierarchical, but but it's more about the communication that you have.
I'm in the hierarchy.
Yeah. That's what I was saying to someone earlier today. I was like, it's really about how you communicate, because communication is better than expectation.
Right.
People have expectations based on their religion, or in this case with the Supreme Court person, she's in some kind of secret society or group or whatever.
Which they be doing nasty, dirty things.
Yeah. So they have their agreements within that. They have their agreements within that group, and that's what they are into. That's not blanket for everybody.
I just think that when people just cut the shit, like I just said, people be in the nasty, dirty things too. When I say that, I'm saying folks will posture like they have it together. They'll say, oh, I am following my husband and or my wife, whatever, right? But we'll say husband, wife, just for those folks out here who talk of this whole binary.
It's the dynamic that we're in. So, and then what they were talking about on the show, right? Husband and wife. Go ahead. That's what they're talking about. That's what the whole foundation is that this woman, not the Supreme Court person, but then later on, Miss Nye, she said she's going to submit to young Jeezy
when she gets married
in the home,
and as his
wife.
Yes.
Okay, so go ahead.
Whatever that means for them.
Yeah. 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 Well, later on, I read an article. She said kind of more what it meant that, that kind of what you said. She trusted him. And she went on to say that growing up, she witnessed in her household that her mother was more dominant, and that after a period of time, her father just kind of gave up and just said, whatever you want to do, you just go ahead and do it. And she didn't want to live in that kind of a relationship. And she said she knows she has those tendencies because she's kind of like her mom. And so she doesn't want to be that in her marriage. So she's chosen, when they do get married, to allow her husband, in this case, Jeezy, he's not young Jeezy anymore because he's older. So I guess he's just Jeezy now, that she's going to allow him to, she's going to submit to his leadership in the home.
I think all that is fine and great if a man has deemed himself in a position of trust and honorability. That's the thing that, I mean, honestly, across the board, I'm not submitting to no thing that I don't trust. No one that I don't trust. If I don't trust you, then you're not leading me.
Right. Well, you shouldn't even get married or be even if you don't trust the person.
But see, I think that's the part of the conversation that gets people all like tense, because so many people out here have shown that they're not trustworthy based on their character, based on how they do business, based on how they've been in previous relationships, based on how they treat themselves. So it makes it, I could understand a cause for pause when people hear that, because they're like, well, this person, it might be some bias because of Young Jeezy being a rapper and the kind of rap that he did or still does, and people have that thug kind of like fast life image.
Sure.
So like, is that really who he is, or was that just a facade? What is this sister really submitting to when she says, I'm submitting to his leadership?
Sure.
Are you submitting to, I'm not saying her, but somebody might be thinking, oh, is she submitting to threesomes? Is she submitting to extramarital affairs? Is she submitting to her body being objectified and her clothes being picked out for her? And you understand what I'm saying? How far down the rabbit hole does this go?
Prince made that sexy. You say you want to pick out your clothes before you go out. I mean, so again, like you said in the beginning, this is what you do in your home, it really should be private. But in this world we live in now, people try to have it every way, right? We want to, everything is public because we're in these social media spaces. We have all this programming that has to be filled. Producers got to have content. Right. So all this stuff that would at one point be private is now public. Yeah. And now we all get to comment on it and try to figure out whether we want to incorporate it into our lives or not. And, since this is a spiritual conversation, I think the key piece is everyone submitting to God. It's submitting to the higher power, the goddess, Sri Krishna, whatever the name or the way that you see that personification, submitting to that first and then taking your guidance from there.
Honey, because if he's goddess worshiping now.
Well, there it is.
If he's got it, you know what I'm talking about.
And I'm sure he probably is.
Hey. And if that's what he's doing, she's like,
right,
me, daddy.
Exactly. But you know what you were saying earlier about the submissive having the power. It reminded me some years ago, a woman was saying how, it was an elder woman, and she was saying how the modern women didn't really know how to use their femininity and things like that to guide men, like not towards giving them money, that kind of stuff, but as far as using the strength of the woman,
the receptivity
right,
of the divine feminine,
right, to be the way maker, opener, or that, because we have different abilities for a reason. We have different what do you call it, like drives, and the way we communicate, the way we express ourselves. And I know now I guess it's not cool in this time to say that the genders have these things, but I guess I'm just old school. That stuff is there, whether you want to admit it or not. Even in the same gender relationships, somebody takes on more of a masculine
because somebody has more of that energy.
Right.
And it could be the feminine one.
Yeah, vice versa. So
the more feminine presenting, I should say.
Right. Okay. So we make space for that, and then in those roles, you determine, how you're going to submit, or where that comes in, and where the communication gets to happen, so that you can learn how to be present for your partner.
Mhm.
And it may not be what you've been used to,
Yeah.
you know, and if you really want to be in a good relationship, you're willing and open to make those adjustments,
Right.
you know. And some people don't want, like when I saw some sisters shaking their head, I was like, well, in the video, right? I'm like, well, are you married? Are you in a relationship? Like people, and they be by themselves, and they think, you know, and that's okay. If you want to be alone, that's fine. You just want to just date around, that's fine. But we're talking about in the African context, we're talking about building community, building family, having a legacy. It's not about that, you know, girlfriend, and you know, I mean, at some point we got to figure out how to have relationships that work.
And I do think that some ways traditionally do get to be integrated into this modern life that we have. It just depends on the people, and it depends on the mindset of the people who are doing it. Because there's some people out here who would say that, you know, having a wife or having a mate that is who's queer, who's an artist, who's entrepreneurial, who is outspoken, that's not traditional for, you know, like, you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
But that's under the conversation of patriarchy, and which is shifting.
Yes.
Greatly.
Yes.
And I do believe that
patriarchy is wheezing on the balcony.
Oh, that's so horrible.
That's real.
The way you said it, though, it's
real.
like patriarchy has COVID.
That's right. For the count.
But I do think that it's about integration. It's about interdependence. It's about respect.
Yes.
And mutual affection and love. And if those things are missing, then I don't give a hot dog vegan turkey sausage. What you doing? Yeah, this is not going to work,
right?
Because then everything else is ego driven. Is basically based off of that, and yeah, we don't have time for that.
Yeah. So much love to Jeezy and his betrothed.
All right.
I pray they have wonderful success in their relationship.
Yes.
It definitely is the fastest way to grow spiritually. Is to get married. You know what I'm saying? Because you're gonna confront a lot of things, but it's good or interesting to see they have some things already agreed upon, which is a lot of people don't even. I mean, just to even say that, even with the Supreme Court person, to say that, hey, this is what we are going to be doing. A lot of people don't even take that step. They may get married or they may have a close love relationship, but to have that communication and say, these are our values. A lot of people don't do that.
Right.
So I can't hate on them or criticize them, particularly when most of us are just kind of flying by the seat of our pants and just going on what we feel.
Because it's way beyond, he takes me out to dinner.
Right.
She gives me good top. He dresses like this. She dresses like this. Or we both go to church on Sunday, but that's for an hour, and then treat other people and ourselves and our mates like crap. I don't, whether it's the temple, whether it's the bembe, whether it's the festival, it's all about really embodying who we are and how we get to be. And also, I think it's important for our counterparts, male or female or non-binary, to not get so stuck in their wounds and traumas, so they're not able to explore the greater possibility of what a relating process can absolutely be.
Right. Yes. That's a good one. You say that again, like if you're seeing that you are stuck somewhere, and you realize you've been hurt, then you got to do the work to heal that, and whether it's counseling or whether it's working with your elders or priests and things, you know, getting spiritual work done. You got to work to heal that so you can be present for where you are now.
Yeah.
You know, it's like that's that song Bag Lady, right? Erykah Badu. You try to bring all that stuff from the past, and then you're here in the present, and you can't even be present. So yeah, let's make sure we're doing the self-healing that we get to do. I'm not sure if we're on the clock time with the real time or whether we're on our time.
We're on that time.
Okay, great. So we still got a few more minutes left.
Yeah. No, I think that what you're saying is right. I mean, what came to my mind is just talking to sisters who, several sisters I've talked to recently that are embarking on new relationship and love and companionship, but they're like, yay, but they're like this at the same time. And it's like, but if you go like this, then your heart can't be open,
right?
And you can't connect with that person. And what if it doesn't last? So what? It's here right now.
Yes.
And that is what's important.
Yes.
Because if we show up for ourselves and our heart is open, and we are loving ourselves, because when we love ourselves and we're paying attention to the other person, if there's red flags, you're going to see it, and you're going to choose yourself. You're not going to be like, well, I said I was going to try this again. No, if the person does not seem like they are on board with what you feel you need mentally, spiritually, emotionally, physically, sexually, financially, and in a lot of cases too, then no.
Right.
But sisters out here can make six figures, do make six figures, and their counterpart or their contemporary might only make 65, might only make 50, might have been an apprentice to become a plumber, might be an electrician, may not be a Fortune 500 cat, but don't have no debt, doesn't have, all these other things going on. Just giving that example. All the different things in which we get to, encourage ourselves. We get to encourage our partners. We get to encourage our mates. We get to, and be open.
Right.
Because remember, a lot of warriors and warrioresses are locked up.
Some of our strongest people. Yeah, it's true. Yeah. And trying to confine ourselves to these systems that we didn't create, that's problematic as well. So people are thinking about, well, is my mate, equal to me as far as the income, what you're saying, which is a big issue with people, but is that ultimately the bottom line of what it is you're trying to achieve in a relationship? I mean, if you want to make money, you come together, you can create a business, you do other things, but there's other parts of nurturing one another and building a family, having children, or being, you may not want to have children, but you want to play a role in the community, have mutual interests and things of that nature. So if we just kind of stake it on what we see out here, which a lot of stuff is illusion anyway, you think people are doing all this stuff, and then when you get their tax returns, you see they're actually broke and it's not really real, what I'm saying? So we can't get caught up in that. I think from going back to the beginning of our conversation here, tapping into the innocence that we have and the joy that we have, and using that as a compass to guide our relationships and to guide our commitments and things like that, then that's where the real victory comes in. Because
kids ain't asking each other how much you make. Well, maybe now they asking how much people's parents make, but when we was coming up, kids weren't asking, they didn't care about that.
No.
You got a juicy juice of Capri Sun, and let's go play.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And some of that gets to be applied within reason.
Yes.
In our relationships. You just might meet somebody and say, I like you. Let's be friends and see what happens and see where this goes. And it's not to say there's not going to be hiccups. And you may discover, you know what? I like when my woman is dominant over me. I want to be submissive to my queen as I'm submissive to, or whatever. You know what I'm saying? I'm saying this. My husband's not that way. Don't get no ideas. But I'm just saying, to be open. Because I know some brothers who they like that. They're into that.
It's all kind of different things.
All kinds of things happening out here. Animals that don't have nothing to do with no farm animals, domestic animals, children, elderly, or people who cannot consent.
As we're winding down, I just want to say this too. Be cautious about the inputs that we're getting about relationships, all the Real House shows, things like that. It influences our thinking and how we see things.
Yes, it does.
And so then we're not necessarily seeing what's in front of us. We're seeing through a filter of all these kind of lies and propaganda and negativity, really, about how men are and how women are and how relationships are. And those things impact us. So please, part of our spiritual hygiene is turning some of that stuff off and spending more time in prayer, spending more time in meditation, spending more time with your partner, and not getting caught up in all these illusions and things, because those folks, when those cameras turn off and they get their paychecks, they're going to enjoy whatever it is that they're doing. And a lot of the stuff that they're acting out is not for our benefit. So please be careful what you consume.
It's for our destruction.
Exactly. So please be careful what you consume. It impacts us. And that's part of our spiritual hygiene and well-being. So thank you again. It's been a wonderful
had a good time.
Friday. Hope you had a good time as well. Tell others that we're here every Friday at 1 o'clock Central Time. And
11 o'clock Pacific and 2 o'clock Eastern.
Exactly. And if you have any topics you want us to cover, just send an email. Let us know.
Yeah, let us know.
Have a great day.
Take good care. One breath, one vibe, one tribe. Peace.
Winnie, me be my answer. Afifi, jeje, fufu.